going to tell you a story, and it's not going to be neat or easy to follow. It's going to take 10 parts, and you're going to need to pay attention. Did I say that already? Oh, and there may be a hint of a cycle. Welcome to the Aurora Wasteland Lifecycle. Episode 5. Monsters Eat Peanut Butter and Jelly Sandwiches 2. I think I've stumbled across something big, something I need to tell the world about. I'm not sure how to do so because I don't know if I fully understand it. It's bigger than everything, so I'm going to need you to pay attention, read between the lines, and come up with your own conclusions because I'm not going to lay it out for you. I've discovered 10 posts in the Aurora Wasteland that when laid together tell a story. A story that is going to change the world. So pay attention. Ugh, I think I said that already. But it's true. Pay attention and think. Think outside the box. As well, you'll see. Maybe. Aurora Wasteland post number 5. Found posted on the Aurora Wasteland website. The park gates faded behind Aaron as the motorbike between his legs roared into the national park. He always loved the first couple seconds of being in the park. The mountains, the trees, the emptiness, it was overwhelming, but in all the best ways. People were annoying, and being alone, well, it was freedom. The trip to the park had become an annual event. This was trip 23, he was 41. The trips had now been happening for more of his life than not. Every year he grabbed his gear, got on his bike, and relived the first time out here. Every trip since the first, he'd been alone. It was that one single initial event that set this annual pilgrimage in motion. As he pulled into the parking lot of Mount Robson, the highest point in the Rocky Mountains, things seemed different from his previous trips. Normally, the change to the fall season emptied the park. It was too cold at night for most people, but based on the packed parking lot, that wasn't the case today. Aaron parked his bike, locked his helmet, and grabbed his stuff. People moved past him towards a large gathering in a field just beyond the parking area. The neon glow from their clothes radiated through the cars before Aaron could even understand what he was looking at. A massive sign stretched over the heads of the hundreds of people, all of whom with neon glow radiating from them. The sign read, "Welcome to the End," sponsored by Neon Spider Cola. With little to go on, other than their clothing and the pounding beats, Aaron assumed it was some sort of rave and set off up the mountain. The music from the rave below followed him up, but it was just background noise for him. Memories from the past flickered to life. Long dormant memories of her, Marie. The trip to the mountains had been with her. They were just starting their final year of high school. The trip was to celebrate the end of their childhood and the start of their actual lives. They were going to get an apartment in the city and live together, where they would be away from Aaron's overbearing father and Marie's religious, almost zealot parents. They were looking forward to nothing else more, and the trip was the beginning of the end and the end of their beginnings, or rather it was supposed to be. As Aaron reached the first of his planned stops, he pulled out a picture from his backpack. He'd brought it every year since the first. It was when it was taken. The rock in the picture sat before him. The lake and the mountain landscape behind it looked shockingly the same. The only thing missing in the picture was the girl in the bikini, Marie. Aaron stared at the picture. Marie smiled back at him. Her tattooed shoulders and piercings glowed on her pale skin in the mountain light. Aaron held the picture up, lining it up with the mountain edges. It looked like she was almost there with him. The mountain was particularly dusty that day as Aaron's eyes whelmed up in tears. The moisture destined to stream down his face didn't, as the voices of people from the rave behind him broke his loving reunion with Marie. The group apologized for the interruption. Aaron waved it off as nothing, but it wasn't. The group told him they were just so excited to be part of the end. They'd tried for years to be a part of it, but it wasn't until this year that they'd got their invite. Confused, Aaron asked what the end was. They laughed at his question, only stretching his frustration with them even further. But a single girl from the group answered him. Her pale skin, tattoos, and piercings reminded him of Marie. She told him that every year people are invited to a rave on this mountain, titled The End. No one knows when it'll be or what the theme will be, to which she promptly replied before Aaron could even ask. The theme is sex this year. The group giggled again, Aaron blushed, and the girl, Che, smiled at him, then asked him to join them. Aaron didn't reply, he only stared at her. Che reminded him so much of Marie, though her neon rave bikini wouldn't have been Marie's first choice. Questionable hiking attire, really. Eventually, after an awkwardly long time, Aaron declined the offer. He was doing this for personal reasons, and it was best he did it alone. Thus, the group with Che continued on without him, leaving Aaron behind. He tucked the picture in his pack and journeyed along his own path, away from the group. That night, the sounds of the rave only grew, and changed from the loud thumping beats he'd started the day with to moans of lust and ecstasy. As he laid there listening to the sounds, Aaron could almost pick out Che's voice. He wondered how close they were, and he second-guessed his choice not to join them. By morning, the thoughts of her were gone as the sun rose over the mountaintops. Aaron packed his tent and his sleeping bag up to a surprisingly quiet mountain. The sounds of the rave were gone. Maybe the event Che had called the end was over, a single night of it, whatever it was. It didn't take long for Aaron to discover why the mountain was so quiet. As he came across the camp of a group of ravers, blood and pieces of what's supposed to be on the inside of people were smeared across the campsite. He found no living person, but no dead person either. No signs of Che. Nothing. Unsure of what to do, he continued his hike. He was too high for cell phones, and rushing down the mountain wouldn't help him on his journey. The annual trek needed to be completed. He wasn't sure how his own sanity would fare for the year if he didn't. With little worry as to what had caused the carnage, Aaron pressed on. By midday and a few more stops to compare old pictures of Marie, Aaron ran into another group. They told him they were from the rave, and that they hadn't experienced anything strange, but they got in there late last night and only arrived this morning. Only that wasn't true. They were a team of Aurora Wasteland explorers, there to investigate what exactly was happening at these yearly raves. No, not for the sex, but for the fact that everyone who was invited to them goes missing. They were never seen from again after being on the mountain. It took years to track down where and when Welcome to the End was taking place, and how to get a team there was challenging. But they did. Despite being late, they were there now, and not sharing their true identities with Aaron. The team had already come across multiple campsites that were similar to the one Aaron had gone through. They had already called it into the police, but the nearest outpost was hundreds of miles away. They were alone and determined to finish what they'd started. But Aaron didn't know any of that. He equated the strange equipment on their backs to being rave gear, not sciencey tech stuff that did sciencey tech stuff things about paranormal stuff, and he went his own separate way, or so he thought. During the interaction, the team tagged him with a tracker, and as long as they stayed within range, they'd know exactly where he was. Aaron was the only living person they'd come across on their trip up the mountain, making him the likely cause of the events. The team tracked him up the mountain, being sure to keep their distance, and even deployed a drone to watch him from afar with a thermal camera. At one point, Aaron entered what looked like a cave, which the team learned was a man-made structure. The tunnel had multiple rooms littered along the walls. The doors for each seemed to be sealed and unopened for a long period of time. The tunnel turned out to be a shortcut up the mountain. Aaron exited the tunnel outside the range of the Aurora Wasteland tracker, but the final images from the drone showed Aaron entering the final room in the tunnel, where he spent some time staring at the floor, then continued on his journey up the mountain. That was the last time they saw him until later that night. As Aaron stared down at the place he and Marie had shared their first kiss, tears streamed down his face. He wondered how many more years he was going to have to do this. He wondered what would happen to him if he just stopped coming. He knew it would be bad, but he didn't know how bad. That night, Aaron could see the glow of the neon rave camps down the mountain. Obviously, some of the people from the night before had survived, and whatever reason, they continued on. Maybe they didn't see the other camps. He didn't know. But he again hoped Che was okay. Then, like on cue, light after light on the mountain went out, each accompanied by a cry that echoed through the silent mountain air. And for a brief second, Aaron thought he could see something in the night. Something big, something girthy. But he couldn't put his finger on what exactly. He'd never had much for imagination. As Aaron drifted off to sleep that night, he dreamt of what he'd witnessed in the sky. He dreamed of it reaching down, wrapping a tentacle around him, feeling its warm skin against his. It reminded him of Marie. Then the tentacle got tighter and tighter, wrapping around him, loop after loop, squeezing him, wringing the life out of him, his insides rubbing against his other insides until vital pieces of himself were inside other vital pieces. Finally, there was a release, and then the dream would start over and over again. As the sun peeked over the ridge of the mountain, Aaron jolted awake in a pool of his own sweat. It took him a few seconds to remember where he was and what he was doing. He checked his watch. He had to hurry if he was going to make it to the top and back down by nightfall. The final climb to the top was by far the most difficult. The tree line vanished behind him, giving away only to rocks, and a more challenging ascension. But having done it before, Aaron traversed the mountain with ease and reached the top before planned. Then started his completion ritual. The peak of the mountain was a plateau with large boulders scattered across the landscape. The entire area was no bigger than a few city buses wide. Aaron pulled a small jar of peanut butter and a small jar of jam from his backpack, along with bread he'd kept safe in a plastic lunch container. Then he proceeded to make a PB&J sandwich with precision, then placed it on a rock near the center of the plateau. Then he stared up at the sky, picture Marie in hand, waiting. It was then that the Aurora Wasteland team interrupted him, though with less team members than before. They told him that it was over. Confused, Aaron asked why. They told him they knew he was the one who set it all up. They knew he planned Welcome to the End, that he needed a way to bring people to the mountain, people he intended to sacrifice. But to what they hadn't known until the night before. They asked him what the tentacle monster was, to which he simply replied, Marie. Then, as if being summoned, tentacles descended from the clouds above the mountain, a massive skull face in the center made of dark, rippling clouds. Aaron laughed and blew the monster in the sky a kiss. Then, like a stupid Bond villain, assuming his victory was inevitable, he told them everything. He admitted to organizing the event, that the people were here for Marie, his girlfriend. They were sheep to the greatness that she was. He set the event up yearly near their anniversary of the day she died up on the mountain. He'd followed her and her friends up here, that he knew she loved him, but she didn't want to admit it to her friends, so Aaron killed them all, locking them away in the tunnel he'd passed through. Then he admitted his love for her. She rejected him initially. Then after time, she gave him a kiss for food that he never delivered. She died in the last room of the tunnel. Her bones were still there, but her essence, well, it was above them. The year after he killed her and her friends was the first time the monster showed up. It couldn't have been a coincidence. So every year since, he'd brought the monster in the sky, Marie, the food he promised her. And every year since, the monster had left him be. As the monster descended, looking to devour, the Aurora Wasteland team admitted something right back to Aaron. Like a classic Danny Ocean double cross, everyone on the mountain this year was an Aurora Wasteland team member. They'd planted neon lights and hired actors for the first night. They knew he was in on it, but they wanted to catch him with his hand in the peanut butter and jam jar. It was then that Aaron noticed Che was among the team members. They'd used her likeness of Marie against him. The team later admitted they didn't know anything about Aaron murdering Marie and her friends. That was all brand new information, which then, looking back, they should have involved law enforcement more. But none of that mattered. As Aaron turned to run, to flee down the mountain, a tentacle wrapped around him, and the dreams he'd encountered the night before became real. Aaron died on the mountain, well, several hundred feet above it. The Aurora Wasteland team wasn't certain why they were spared by the monster in the sky, though they do note that it was likely due to the ample amount of aftershave that one team member had on. It seemed to have the same effect with the women on the team. Did you see it? Story. Remember everything because you're going to need it. I can't lay it out for you because I'm not sure I understand it. Still, the message, the idea is big, and well, you'll see. Hey, my name is Vaughn Ashby. I wrote this. If you liked what you heard, head on over to VaughnAshby.com/free and pick up a free novel or a bunch of other free stuff. Go explore the Aurora Wasteland yourself at AuroraWasteland.com. Don't forget to check out the Stories from the Wasteland podcast and search for Vaughn Ashby on YouTube for video versions and other exciting videos. Thanks for listening.